Second person I'm going to ask to speak is Phil Coulson.
Yes, sir.
Phil, you're here. Are you not?
He's right behind you.
Right behind me, okay. Would you like to sit or stand?
Mr. Coulson,
Why don't you stand and I'll sit?
if you would tell us, give us your full name and tell us where you live and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let us know what you want us to hear.
My name is Phil Waldron. I live in Texas, close to Mr. Ramsland out in Dripping Springs. So, my background is Army information operations, the intersection of computer network operations, electronic warfare, psychological operations, deception, and OPSEC. And my point of view of looking at these systems is how to penetrate them, how to corrupt them, how to manipulate them to conduct strategic influence operations. And in my opinion, this is the American people are under a pretty significant information warfare campaign that's multifaceted. And we've looked at the Dominion system. We've looked at the history of these electronic voting companies, and they're all pretty well related. They're connected by a common DNA, which is their software code. So this all started back with Smartmatic. It was designed basically to keep Hugo Chavez in power in Venezuela. He invested, I believe, 28% of the funds to stand the company up. And I personally debriefed the son of a Cuban intelligence officer who firsthand knowledge two of Hugo Chavez's family members when Maduro was faced by a populist uprising after Hugo Chavez had died. Two of Hugo Chavez's family members said, "Don't worry, it's guaranteed. Our father invested the money into Smartmatic so that Maduro is going to win." So I guess to connect all the dots, Dominion Voting Equipment acquired a company called Sequoia Voting Systems, which was spun off of SGO Smartmatic. And they also acquired the Premier system, which came from the Diebold election company, which also used Smartmatic software. ES&S software, which Mr. Ramsland mentioned, has a license agreement with Smartmatic, and so does Dominion. They all feed information to Clarity Elections, which is owned by a company called Scytl, SCYTL, which is headquartered in Madrid, Spain. They also have U.S. elections. Our team's recently uncovered, just doing basic investigative work on the dark web, but we have an affidavit to this effect that Smartmatic and Dominion do share a physical business address in Barbados at the same building, the same street address. So there are commonality in business links, licensing agreements, as well as the software code and the functionality. We began really looking at these as looking at the operator's manuals for these software systems, and just like President Chavez designed them for, they're designed to control and manipulate votes, and that's what we found reviewing these things.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
So, have you had an occasion to examine one of these Dominion machines?
Yes, sir. We did up in northern Michigan. Our team conducted forensics analysis on Central Lake Township Precinct in Antrim, Michigan on the 27th of November.
And would you consider it to be a very insecure machine that can be accessed very easily?
Correct. These machines have been shown at DEF CON and hacking contest, and actually elementary school students to DEF CON guys can get in under 2 minutes. The elementary school kids can get in about 7 minutes to hack into the machines and take over their operating system.
This is contrary to the public statements that Dominion has made about their security. Isn't that correct?
There are about 12 different attack vectors or ways you can get into these systems. Everything from the server level to download CSV files, make changes to them, and re-upload them at the server level, to basically in the operating system of these machines. And what we found in Antrim, Michigan, is everybody's got thumb drives. But until you put one in your computer, you really don't know what's on there. That's a common vulnerability. And actually in the military, in our classified equipment systems, all of the USB ports are disabled because of the huge vulnerability represented by USB drives. So when the Antrim County, actually it was the township of Central Lake, they had finished their voting on the 3rd, stored all their ballots according to the policy and all of their chain of custody documents for the software. They got called back to do a rerun on November the 6th using the same voting data card, using the same encryption or the encryption software, but a different USB drive to run the totals. Their totals were significantly different, even in down ballot races. The presidential race, I think, was only different by a couple of 3 votes. And it was, again, a very, very small sample size. But school board elections, state propositions for spending, and marijuana bills changed the outcome of the vote in the rerun from November the 3rd to November the 6th. And again, this was one small precinct with a total of 1,494 votes. And basically what this does is put this system outside of the specificity limitations set forth in the federal election laws, that you're basically only allowed 1 out of 250,000 votes or ballots to have an error. And the error rate was far exceeded the allowable standard for this software.
Have you had an opportunity to examine any of other Dominion machines?
No, but we'd like to. The company stalls pretty much at every opportunity. They've included in their contracts, and I'm sure that it's the same in Georgia, that they want to control your votes, and they want to ensure that you can't inspect their software or how your votes are voted, where they're sent, and how they're stored. As a matter of fact, we just left Michigan early this morning and testifying before the House last night in Oakland County. If you actually click on their county election supervisor, you click on the 2020 election results, a warning flag pops up and it says you're exiting this site and you're going to Clarity Elections. So Clarity Elections is a subsidiary of Seidel, which provides the early voting logs to TVs, New York Times, all the mainstream media. Those votes from Oakland County, which was one of the biggest counties in Michigan, they're actually controlled, maintained, and owned by Clarity Elections. And it pops up on the website. We're going to take you to www.clarity.elections, and you can look that up on your computers if you'd like to.
So I would think this would come as quite a surprise to the people of Georgia or Michigan, or that their voting data is sent outside the United States, and also that their vote is being counted by a foreign company. Isn't that correct?
Clarity Elections is owned by Seidel, which is headquartered in Barcelona, Spain. And again, these companies have servers all over the world, and we came to the identity of, or saw the packet transfer to the server in Frankfurt. That was reported on the 8th, and then on the 9th, that server went offline. So we know from German cybersecurity professors that talked about the increase in the drastic increase in their traffic on November the 3rd and 4th. And he attributed the increase in traffic, in web traffic, to the American elections. So it was common knowledge that that server was processing a lot of American election data.
And one last question: could you describe fractional voting?
So if all of us in this room, had one vote for one candidate, we would have the sum of the votes in this room. When the votes are reported to from Dominion to the media, they're reported in fractional numbers, 3 digits. So when you add whole numbers together, you can't get a fraction. When you calculate or have a formula or an algorithm to assign points to votes, then you get a fraction. So our voting results are reported in fractional values, not in whole numbers.
All right, Senator Beach?
Yes, thank you, Colonel Waldron, for your testimony. I voted on Election Day.
Senator, you need to speak into the microphone because otherwise you won't
Yes.
be picked up.
I vote, Colonel Waldron, thank you for your testimony. I voted on Election Day, and I got a paper ballot. I scanned it, and on the scanner, it said I was number 78 at 9:05. So my question to you is, Ms. Pick was telling us in that video there were 3 scanners at the State Farm Arena. Is there a drive tape or a flash drive in a scanner that we could know if votes were counted between 10:30 and 1 a.m. on those 3 machines at State Farm Arena? Because my ballot told me I was cast at 9:05 and I was number 78 on the machine I scanned it in. So should we be able to have some data from those 3 scanners?
So those ballots, the paper is actually scanned into a ballot image, and the ballot image is actually what is counted for the vote. So each one of those machines do have logs, and they will transmit to a reporting upload time. It's my understanding, I believe Tuesday though, that the Fulton County machines were wiped. I heard a report of that. I don't know that. There are forensic artifacts that can be pulled off those machines, but really the place you would get that is under the U.S. Code. I believe it's Title 46. All federal election documents, whether they're paper or electronic, have to be maintained for 22 months. So if there is an archive, those ballot images will tell you the date timestamp on those. But someone would have to get a forensic access to that data and those machines, the tapes, and the servers.
And was Ms. Pick correct in saying there could be about 3,000 an hour scanned in a machine? So it could be about 18,000 votes? Is that correct?
That's the technical specifications of those machines are, depending on their jam rate, between 2,000 and 3,000 an hour. If they're operating great with a seasoned operator that knows what they're doing, they can probably get up to the manufacturer specification, which would be 3,000 votes per hour.
Thank you.
Senator Parent.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Chairman, first, really brief comment, and I do have a question. Some of what you said, portions of it, remind me of some of what we heard in testimony in various committees in 2019 when we were considering buying this new system, actually. We did hear from a lot of election security experts, computer scientists, and I don't know if you're aware, but Democrats argued repeatedly and strongly against buying these due to their complexity, cost, and potential lapses in security.
That's correct.
But my question is, you're aware, of course, that there was a hand recount using the human readable text that also held Biden out as the victor of this election. Do you have a comment on that? Do you have an opinion on the risk limiting audit done on every ballot using the human readable text versus the barcode?
Yes, ma'am. If there was a 100% audit on actual ballots, which if that was done, that's awesome. The risk limiting audit, I believe, is a very small sample of those ballots. So
Normally, yes, but
Yeah.
this one,
So if the evidence that was presented this morning, the videos, if additional ballots were pulled in, then that's what you're going to count. You're going to count the ballots that have been injected into the process. And this is something, again, that we've seen in Pennsylvania and Arizona and Michigan and a couple other states that we're currently working on, is that there is there are huge breaches in chain of custody of the ballots, of the USB drives that run these systems. So yes, ma'am, that risk limiting audit could have been conducted 100% and shows the readouts. There are ways to detect fraudulent paper ballots. We can image those to detect machine printed ink spots. We can detect if they were folded. We can detect if they were marked by hand. There's about 29 different point signatures when you pick up a pen and you fill in a ballot, a machine-printed ballot, a mass-produced ballot, which we have affidavits in Pennsylvania and Arizona that these machine-printed ballots were injected into the system. So until you did a full forensic audit, you would not be able to tell which ballots were actually filled out by Georgia citizens or which ballots were printed by machine and fraudulently injected into the voting process.
Senator Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. I know when the Secretary of State was shopping for when we had to upgrade our voting system, I think we had 3 different vendors who came before us, and they settled on the Dominion Group, and they're used now in all 159 counties that we have here in Georgia. How many other states use this system? Do you know the answer to that? And what's been the feedback with other states?
Generally, there's a mix. So, for example, in Arizona, it's only Maricopa County. In Michigan, it's swapped up. In Pennsylvania, it was pretty much Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, I think, used ES&S. But the functionality and the systems are very, very similar between ES&S and Dominion as far as our research goes. So what Mr. Ramsland presented earlier that showed about a 5.5 point differential when you just isolate Dominion machines across the country, that's kind of the working
right
theory that we were working off of.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. So I saw some looks on people's faces, even with their mask on, when you were talking about the fractional adding of votes. Maybe you can go over that one more time because it gave me pause when I first heard it as well. So maybe you can help me with that. And is that just with the Dominion program that you've seen, or you've seen
that appears to be the live feed from Dominion and Clarity. So all of those reporting, the fractional voting is there. It's not a whole number. Again, if there are 10 people, you cast 10 ballots. The sum of the whatever candidates are voted for should equal 10, and not 2.87 for one, 3.13 for the other, and 4 for the third candidate. It should all, equal whole numbers, and that's not what's represented.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Jordan? Let me see. Let me get your what number are you on? 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have some follow-up questions because I'm a little bit confused.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Parent indicated that, or asked you about the fact that in terms of the risk limiting audit, that there had been a hand examination of every single machine cast ballot that resulted in virtually an identical outcome as the scanned vote. And I'll represent to you that it was 100% recount, that normally risk limiting audits obviously are a small portion, but here it was an actual recount of all ballots. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with respect to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so after she said that, though, you went on to say something about, however, what we saw in the video about the ballots injected into the process. So are you trying to say that in the video what you saw were ballots that were somehow not lawful, that weren't real, that weren't actually cast by registered voters in the state of Georgia?
We do have affidavits of people who trucked in ballots from out of state into other states, and that.
And to be clear, into Georgia, because I heard
not into Georgia. No.
That's right. I heard a lot about Michigan too, and a lot about not North Carolina, which is part of the problem, but a lot about Michigan, a lot about Arizona, a lot about these other states, which some use some of the same systems, some don't. And as you know, state to state, the election laws and processes are very different, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And even, ma'am, even from county to county, under the same law, the execution and chain of custody procedures appear to be a lot different.
It can be. We're trying to make sure that they're as
Yes, ma'am.
streamlined and, as possible. Obviously, that's hard. So your opinion is based on the fact that there are affidavits of other people from other states who have alleged that they've trucked in ballots to other states, and so then your testimony is saying that ergo, these ballots in this video must have been trucked in from other states and are unlawful? Is that the conclusion?
No, ma'am. I said that a full forensic audit would determine that. And forensically auditing the paper, the ink, and the ink signatures with optical imaging devices would be able to tell you if there were any ballots that were not legitimate ballots that were injected into the process.
And so then my question is, if these were extras that were just trucked in, right? Somebody just brought them in, then you would expect then that the number of ballots would exceed the number of registered voters who had requested absentee ballots and or who had voted in person, correct?
Underneath the, within the margin of error,
Okay.
we've seen, again, I haven't seen in Georgia, so I can't testify to that, but we've seen in other places where ballots were segregated, separated, and discarded or not counted, and then other ballots were injected, and those were by affidavits that have been acquired by all the legal teams.
And so, for example, in Georgia, you
Senator
don't know,
Jordan,
just one more.
I was going to say,
One more,
just
Mr.
one more
Chairman.
question.
So sitting here, you don't know that the fact that the number of ballots cast actually matched the number of registered voters that requested absentee ballots and then cast the absentee ballots and or appeared in person to cast ballots, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other Senator Tillery, did you have a question? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Clarifying that?
Yes, sir.
Colonel, when you see those ballots being taken out from under the desk, aren't there 96,600 ballots that were voted, but for which there's no return? Could they possibly be those ballots?
There is a possibility.
Or could that be a reasonable explanation for these unexplained ballots?
It could be one explanation, yes, sir.
And what about to go further back in Mr. Ramsland's analysis, expert opinion, he says there are 136,098 votes that have the indicia of fraud. They're in serious question based on the analysis that he did of the Dominion machines. Could it have something to do with that?
The machine vote is highly suspect. I think if I recall correctly, the timeline, the upload of votes.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
0336 in the morning, that of the 4th. Georgia had the largest single ballot upload, and it was from multiple centers, but it was a 200,000 ballot upload. And at 0336.
What time was that?
0336
Did that
on the
include
4th.
Fulton County?
That was across multiple precincts across the state.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
I just have one really quick follow-up, one just real quick.
One, but I have other senators that have questions.
I know, but one of the issues with respect to Mr. Ramsland that I want to, is that there was an indication that, are you aware of the fact that in the system, in our voting system, that when you vote early, it indicates that you have cast an absentee ballot? So, for example, it will say absentee ballot requested, let's say October 6th, and then it'll say received October 6th, but it says absentee. Are you aware of that?
That would be a question for Mr. Ramsland, I'm sorry.
Okay, and so could that explain some of these purported votes that he was talking about in terms of they were absentees the day, they were received the day of and then voted the same day? Or
So
requested
if
and
they're
then voted?
in Georgia, if there's a difference in absentee ballots versus mail-in ballots, then there is a difference. If the early votes were recorded as absentee ballots, I believe what I heard Mr. Ramsland say that those were mail-in ballots. So if there's a distinction between absentee and mail-in in the state of Georgia, that would be a question for your election officials as far as how they tabulate or account for early voting statistics on the Secretary of State's website.
Senator Tillery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the mayor asked the question about the 96,600 votes that I was going to ask a lot more eloquently than I could. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I do have 2 follow-up questions on that. When you mentioned, it sounds like if we have done a full audit of the paper counts, 100%, not just a small percentage of audit, that may negate some of your concerns about the Dominion machines, but you then said we might need to audit the paper for what the 200-ish thousand or so that may have come in. Did I hear you correctly on that?
Again, there are so many ways. So I look at life as how to attack it. That's what I did in the military. How do I attack it? How do I defeat it? How do I interdict it? And if we looked at those, you can, we've heard testimony, and again, I'm not sure about Georgia on the processing, but I did hear it in Pennsylvania, I did hear it in Arizona, that mail-in ballots were opened by the time they got to the processor. There were ballots separated from the envelope. The signature verification was non-standard on the
I don't mean
envelope.
to cut you off. I'm doing it just for time purposes.
Yes.
I apologize. But I thought you said something about ink and where folds were and marks on the paper.
Correct.
My question goes to that. With the Dominion system and our ballot marking device, would that put marks in the same place that would cause some issue with auditing the way you suggested, possibly on marks on the paper?
No, the hand-marked features of a ballot are forensically, it's just like, when you're at DPS, your state troopers do ballistics on a bullet. Every ballot has a unique marking parameter that can be picked up by optical sensors to differentiate it from machine printing. Even if they, try to smudge a machine print on a printer, a hand-marked ballot is different than a machine-marked ballot, and that can be picked up and with a reprogrammed scanner.
One final question for you, Mr. Chairman. I do not know if you've been able to look at Georgia's numbers specifically yet, but I'm wondering, did you see fractional numbers in Georgia?
I did not look, I just looked at the aggregate roll-ups, so I did not, Mr. Ramsland and several other members of the team did
That'd be a question
the
we
work
should
on
ask him.
Georgia, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, I think Senator Rett had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to welcome you all to Georgia, and particularly the Honorable Mayor. I'm a retired veteran, and I lived in New York under your tenure as mayor, in particular under 9/11, and I want to give you kudos for a great job. But I have a quick question. From a financial and logistical standpoint, it won't be feasible to change out the Dominion system before the January 5th runoff. So if you had a chance to talk to the voters of Georgia, what would you say to them in terms of encouragement moving forward using this system? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I would say there are controls that can be put into place for every machine. If there is absolute positive control of the software and the tapes, you basically put the software in position in the machines. You run a standard ballot, 200 ballots for one candidate and 200 ballots for the other candidate. Get the tapes out and make sure that they run right, and then you pretty much have a guard on that machine so that nobody touches the USB drives or the soft drives, and then every precinct can have a hard copy tape, and that can be manually added up.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think there are any further. Senator Harper, did you have a question?
Mr. Chairman,
What number is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to just a point of clarification to Senator Jordan's point about absentee ballots. I just pulled up my, I voted early and in person, and I think we do, although it says absentee, it specifically says absentee early in-vote. Early in-person voting is the way it is specifically listed. And if you go to the Secretary of State's website, it also separates those absentee by mail, absentee by advance, or advance in-person voting. I just wanted to make sure that there was a clarification that there is a distinction in our system of by mail absentee, early in-person voting by absentee.
Thank you, Senator Harper. So, Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I understand you tell us that someone at your level could hack into the machine in 2 minutes?
A hacker, yes, sir. DEF CON, which is a big conference, they have all the white hat and black hat hackers out in Las Vegas every year. But that's not me.
Okay. If we could find, if someone can hack in it in 2 minutes, can we find out who did it?
Sir, if there was a full forensic audit, then yes. But for anyone to hack into the machines as they sit without the proper authorization would be illegal.
Be
Okay.
illegal. Okay.
Be illegal for me to do it without the proper
I
authorization
see,
or our
I
teams.
see, I see. All right, and then my follow-up question, the 96,000 votes that the mayor's talking about, could they been, in this situation we in, could they been come in from out of state?
The capability exists, the possibility exists for them to be printed. We had voice recordings of an order being placed in China to print ballots. They were given the basic ballots, and they were, again, that's outside of the U.S. and outside really of our purview, but there are indications that there were fake ballots printed up and pre-positioned in places for injection into the voting systems.
In Georgia?
No, sir, not that I know of in Georgia, in the U.S. presidential election.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Senator Cardin. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Colonel. I would just like to finish up with 2 points. First of all, Representative Jordan, you said that the Democrats here objected to Dominion. I should tell you that the best letter written on Dominion is written by my Congresswoman, Carolyn Maloney, who is a Democrat. And I really would suggest reading it. It's prophetic. She wrote it in 2006, and she basically outlined the history of Dominion and Smartmatic, the connection to Hugo Chavez. Eventually, she followed up with Maduro, and how it's a highly inaccurate machine. And I guess this is just a question. I don't know why that isn't discovered in due diligence. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, this is not a machine you want counting your votes. Second, so I don't consider that a part of an issue at all. But it does cast doubt on the entire legitimacy of the vote. And the fact that you have the power to do this, state law doesn't in any way prevent you, the legislature, from immediately taking this over and deciding this. That power, right, obligation is given to you by the Founding Fathers, deliberately. The Founding Fathers felt in a situation, I can't imagine they thought of this one, but in a situation of complexity, the best place to decide would be with the institution closest to the people. And you're the institution closest to the people. And you're going to have a very, very much better legal mind than mine talk to you on this, Professor Eastman. My professor in law school was Eastland. This is Professor Eastman. And it's very, very clear. The Supreme Court in McPherson versus Blacker says whatever provisions may be made by statute or by the state constitution to choose electors by the people, there is no doubt of the right of the legislature to resume the power at any time. To be sure, at any time would likely not allow the legislatures to pick its own set of electors by whim, but there would have to be a substantial basis for it. And that's really what we're presenting to you, a substantial basis, even to the point that these votes are too illegitimate to certify. Either too illegitimate to certify, or you can look through them and certify them in whatever way you feel is right. But this is your power, your obligation, and I know it's surprising. I've been before state legislators who didn't realize it, and really, so do we really have this power? And then once reading the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, it clearly is yours. You are the final arbiter of who the electors should be and whether the process is fair or not. And the other way to look at it, it's your responsibility if a false and fraudulent count is submitted to the United States government. And it is clear that the count you have right now is false.